Hey everybody, welcome to another comic book review. In this video, I'll be talking about the second volume of Alan Moore's run on Saga of the Swamp Thing. So, this book picks up where the first one left off, and it follows, in this very first issue, Swamp Thing still kind of trying to come to terms with the fact that he's no longer going to become human again. That possibility is just thrown out the window. So this very first chapter is just kind of like a journey into the Swamp Thing's thought process and kind of reflecting on the old life that he originally thought he had back when he still believed he was Alec Holland. And by the end of this first chapter, he realizes, okay, there's no possibility of me becoming human again, so let's get on with my life. This next series of chapters, like the next 2 or 3 chapters actually, they're really terrifying, actually. This is like, Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing is horror comics as they should be, I think. This, especially the second chapter of this book, where it reveals kind of what happened to Matt Cable, Abigail's husband, and what happened to him after he wrecked his car in the first volume, and kind of who he really is. And once you find that out, it's really creepy. There's a lot of gross stuff with bugs in this second chapter that is really pretty disgusting, but really cool to watch. And kind of seeing like how all this plays out and discovering who is Matt Cable. It's great. It's great stuff. And then seeing Swamp Thing kind of go up against him and the result of that. There's an issue in here that has Swamp Thing meet up with some like already established characters in the DC universe. So he meets up with Deadman, and he meets with the Phantom Stranger, and the Spectre, and Etrigan for a second time, because Etrigan kind of came up in the first volume, but he comes up again in this one, and that's always really cool to see how Alan Moore kind of handles that character. There's a great moment in this volume where Swamp Thing goes to hell to recover somebody that he loves and kind of bring them back to Earth again. And seeing Alan Moore's vision of hell is really interesting. It's cool because you can kind of see how it inspired Neil Gaiman's version of hell, specifically from the Sandman comics. There's a lot of inspiration that's taken from Alan Moore's Swamp Thing in the Sandman and Neil Gaiman's version of hell, which I think is really cool. This chapter, there's a chapter in here, it's called Pog, and it's somewhat of a tribute to a comics, like a comic series called Pogo by Walt Kelly. And it's fun to see, especially the things that Alan Moore does with language in this issue. He kind of invents like his own like way of talking, and kind of like borrows from Walt Kelly's Pogo and comes up with all these new words, and you know, all these characters kind of interacting with Swamp Thing, and they don't understand what Swamp Thing's saying because they're from just a totally different planet. And so it's fun. It's one of my least favorite issues in this volume, but it is fun. There's some stuff with Cain and Abel in here, which is really, really cool. They originally debuted in the House of Secrets and the House of Mysteries, 2 old series from DC. And they later reappeared in Neil Gaiman's Sandman comics as well. it's really cool reading this run, Alan Moore's run on Swamp Thing, and seeing how many future series were influenced by this run. A lot of inspiration for Sandman came from this run, and just a lot of stuff Neil Gaiman did in general. And then, there are other series that were inspired by this, but this kind of set up a pathway for a lot of comic series that would come out in the future, especially from DC and back whenever Vertigo Comics was introduced. The Mature Readers imprint of DC, which is no longer around, sadly. It kind of this was kind of the inception of all of that. This final chapter, which is one of the most iconic in Moore's run, it's cool because it flips to like widescreen, and you get this really cool, like trippy sequence with Abby and the Swamp Thing, and they're just kind of like in the swamp and discovering their love for one another for the first time. And there's a really interesting way of kind of like figuring out, okay, this guy is like a literal plant. He's a walking plant. And so how does a human like interact with a plant, and how would a relationship with a plant, what would that look like? Like a plant that can talk, and how does a plant do things differently from a human? Because if you think about it, a plant is a living organism. So this volume kind of explores, how a plant interacts with the world, and, kind of the relationship between like a talking, walking, breathing plant, and a human. And it's cool because just all the inventive things that happen with, the things that are later explored in this series. It kind of starts out with this chapter. And, this is kind of the beginning of the relationship between Abby and the Swamp Thing after the whole situation that happened with her former husband. So it's really cool stuff, very inventive, very, it was kind of a big deal back in the day whenever this run was originally coming out, because back when the Comics Code Authority was still a thing, this series kind of violated a lot of like the like code that was set up, and so this was kind of like very influential when it comes to breaking into like a more like mature readers imprint of DC Comics. And it was very boundary pushing for the time, and looking back, it's pretty tame. But there's like so many like weird ideas and like new things in this book that were very boundary pushing for the time. And it's, again, this is a series that really paved the way for a lot of things that readers during the time when this series was coming out probably never thought they were going to see in a comic. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Volume 2 of Alan Moore's Saga of the Swamp Thing. Thank you as always for watching. Look forward to more videos in the future, and have a great day.